Welcome to Journey In, a show that aims to offer you new and expanding perspectives when it comes to defining your spirituality. These days, more and more of us are craving a deeper connection to something bigger than ourselves. I created this show to not only share about my personal journey, but to create a space to have conscious conversation around different spiritual modalities, health and wellness trends, and to hear from spiritual thought leaders so that we can come together and respect one another despite our spiritual beliefs and differences. At the end of the day, a spiritual journey is a homecoming to who you really are, and you get to define what that path looks like. It can be messy, hard, and confusing. We're going to journey through it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Jess, and let's journey in. Hello, you guys. Welcome back and happy Virgo season. So I literally, if you're watching the video version of this, I literally just got my hair cut into a bob. So I'm like literally today. So I'm just getting used to it, but loving it. You guys will have to let me know what you think. Just felt like I needed a change and I don't color my hair. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to chop it off. Anyways, Virgo season. Here we are. So we are following along with true Virgo season. The sun is in the constellation of Virgo from approximately September 15th-ish to November 3rd. So we have a while with this Virgo energy according to True Sky Astrology. So you guys have been hearing me call it 13 sign astrology, but I also call it True Sky Astrology. So just so you know, it's the same thing. And so with that, I really wanted to touch on Virgo season and talk a lot about health and wellness, which is like going back to my roots. If you guys have been with me since I started my business, you know that I started in holistic nutrition. And so I'm going to talk a bit about my wellness practices today, and we're going to dive into it. And I'm so excited because nutrition and the way that I eat is just, it's a pillar for me. It's a foundation. And it's not something that I really share a whole lot of just as I've really emerged into my journey with my spirituality. But it is something that, like that chapter of my life when I was a holistic nutrition consultant, I'm so grateful for, because I learned so much, and I just completely changed my diet and my lifestyle, and it's something that has stuck with me. But it's also been an ebb and flow. So I'm going to talk a bit about that today as well. But I wanted to just give a brief introduction to Virgo season, what Virgo energy really brings to the table, so that you guys can start to sit with this energy as well. And so when we're thinking about Virgos, and when I'm talking about Virgos, you don't have to be your sun sign to be like a Virgo or have Virgo energy. It doesn't have to be your sun sign. It could be literally any placement. Like for me, I have my Jupiter in Virgo. And so Jupiter tells us a lot about how we expand and how we're meant to lead. And so for me, Virgo is actually a prominent energy, which is no surprise just with my journey. With health and wellness and holistic nutrition. So I would really encourage you to look up your True Sky Astrology chart and see if you have any placements at all in Virgo. And I will put that link in the show notes to do so. But also just really tune in and see what resonates with you and really listen to your body, because Virgo understands that the body is truly a temple and honestly like our gateway to higher consciousness. And that has been something that I have been really feeling lately, is just taking my wellness in terms of nutrition and even movement and everything that I put into my body to the next level. And this is just a really good time to focus on your health. So if you're naturally leaning into that, or if your body is telling you something or trying to tell you something, maybe you've had like an ache or a pain or something in your body for a while, and it's time to go to the doctor. It's time to finally see what's up. Virgos are usually very, very conscious of what they put into their body, because they're so aware of it, and expansion comes through the body for Virgos. So with that being said, this just feels like such a great time to really get intentional about what you're putting into your body. That has been, like I said earlier, it's just been coming up so big for me personally. And one of my intentions for Virgo season, and honestly, probably beyond Virgo season, is releasing alcohol, going alcohol free. I don't really drink a whole lot, but I do drink socially. And my journey with alcohol has been tumultuous. I mean, that can be an episode for a later date, but I've come so far with it. And it's something that I don't frequently partake in, but I just ultimately for a while have been feeling like, okay, it's time to let it go. And so I was like, you know what? That's going to be one of my intentions for Virgo season, just as I step into being really, really intentional about what I put into my body. And so maybe start to think about that. For you, it doesn't have to be alcohol, it can be something else. Maybe releasing like one thing and adding in something that is healthier for you that your body is wanting. So that's just one of my intentions, as well as committing to shopping at my local farmers market for my meats and also for my vegetables, which I'm going to be honest, isn't something I primarily would shop at Whole Foods for these just because it's more accessible. It's honestly more reasonable price wise, but I've been updating myself on a lot of nutrition and health and wellness sourcing and practices, and have just been finding out so many things that are just atrocious, which I'll speak to even more in a bit. But that's also a really big intention for me. So I think when it comes to health and wellness overall, our diet is the first place to start because it is truly like the biggest foundation for our health, what we put into our body. Like the saying, you are what you eat, is so, so, so accurate. My journey personally with finally listening to my body started at 25 years old. I'm 31 now. So I've really been on this journey of listening to my body for about 6 years now. And I am in no way perfect with this, you guys. Like, I feel like I've gone through for the past like year or so, I kind of got really loose with my nutrition. Like, kept a lot of my staples, with cooking with better fats and eating gluten-free and dairy-free. But I feel like I kind of got lazy about sourcing. And, like I said earlier, I shopped a lot at Spouts and Whole Foods. And honestly, a lot of it too was just not being super aware of the sourcing at those bigger food grocery stores. But also, I've just been, I don't know, like letting myself eat more sugar and just not being as intentional with my body and what I eat. And that's not to say I've never really been like into eating junk food ever since I've been on this journey, but I don't know. It's just, I haven't been as intentional. And so as of the last really few months, and especially these last few weeks, I've been feeling very intuitively like, okay, this is the time to like really get intentional with what I'm eating. And so it all started for me when I was 25. And some of you guys might know this. I explained this in my very first episode of the pod. But I actually discovered my food intolerances at 25 years old because I grew up literally with stomach aches pretty much every day of my life. And I'm not exaggerating. My parents used to rush me into the ER numerous times because I would be like buckled over in pain, screaming when I was little because my stomach hurt so bad. And they would always the doctors would just be like, she's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with her. Because in the early 90s, they weren't doing food intolerance testing and they weren't thinking, in the ER, they weren't thinking about it being food related. And so then one day I was sitting at my doctor's office for something unrelated, and when I was 25, and I saw a sign for a test for food allergy testing. And at that point, this was 6 years ago. So at that point, it wasn't super prominent like it is now. And it was like just kind of coming into people's awareness. And I was like, I just knew immediately. I saw the sign and I was like, I need to do that. And so I talked to the receptionist and I was like, I want to set up an appointment to come in and get my blood drawn because it's food intolerant food sensitivity tests are done via the blood. And so I did. The results came back that I was intolerant, like highly intolerant. And there's a difference between like an allergy and an intolerance. So allergies are usually like immediate reactions that you have. Intolerances are usually a little bit delayed reactions, and they usually manifest in terms of like digestive issues and maybe like fatigue, headaches, or migraines, joint pain. Those are all of those symptoms are associated with intolerances, whereas allergies are usually like more immediate rashes, like closing of the throat, shortness of breath, itchiness somewhere. And so all of mine are intolerances. Okay. And mine came back as highly, highly, highly intolerant to gluten, dairy, and garlic. And I think also soy at the time, because I also had leaky gut at the time. And so my whole entire world was just like the doctor told me. And I literally was like, what the fuck? Because at that point, I was 25 years old. I had a corporate job. I had no idea how to cook. And I ate out a lot. My favorite food was pizza. Literally explains the stomach aches all the time. And I just remember sitting in my car afterwards and crying for like 20 minutes because I was like, I don't know what the fuck to do. So anyways, I won't get super into that story. Just if you want to hear it, it's all the way back in episode 1 of my podcast. But it changed my life. And I'm so, so grateful for it, because that's when I learned how to cook, which I discovered that I'm a great cook and I love cooking, something that I didn't know. It was like this aspect of me that I feel like was sleeping for my whole life, and it just like awakened, and my body led me there. And so that has been something that I've really learned over the course of living a gluten-free, dairy-free, more whole food focused diet for the past 6 years, has been to really look at my body as my guide into what's best for me. And it's not easy to do. I remember at first it was like so hard taking all of that out of my diet, but then once you get used to it, you really don't miss it. I would say the only thing I miss these days is like cheese, and I'll indulge every now and then. But I've just really started to learn that my food intolerances have been my body's way of speaking to me and helping me like clear out my system. And so I think that that's something that is really, really important to adapt, especially when it comes to food intolerances, is really just honoring your body for what it doesn't want, because your body is so intelligent and it's honestly guiding you to what's best for you, and cutting out that food is going to help you literally awaken mentally, spiritually, energetically, all of it. And so that, just if you are listening and you have food intolerances and you really lust after foods that you can't have, really start to rewrite. I would encourage you to rewrite the story and start to see it as a blessing and really see it as guiding you to what's best for you. Because once we start, in my experience, when we start with our vessel, like our physical vessel, our body, and cleaning that up, it opens up so much for us, especially spiritually. Usually people, if they are on the spiritual path, it usually starts with cleaning up the body, cleaning up the diet, because you have to be able to think and feel and see, and you have to have a clear vessel, literally. And so I want to talk a little bit about food intolerances. And I've gotten this question a few times about like not knowing where to start with food intolerances. And so firstly, work with a doctor. I would not recommend doing an at-home food sensitivity test. They are a marketing gimmick. They literally make you prick your finger and they get like a little drop of blood, and the test comes back as you're basically slightly intolerant to like everything. I've had multiple friends do it, and it came back the same for them, which that's not helping you at all. And also, there's no way that they can get enough information from just a little bit of blood. They need a lot of blood to accurately test you for a full food sensitivity panel. Okay, like literally when I got my blood drawn for my food sensitivity panel, I almost passed out because it was so much blood that they took. And so go to a doctor, either your primary care doctor, ask if they do food sensitivity testing, or you can just look it up. Or I really recommend working with a functional medicine practitioner. And so you can find a functional medicine practitioner at www.ifm.org. I'll put that in the show notes, and just see if who's near you, because functional medicine doctors really look at the body as a whole and getting to the root cause of things. And so that would be my recommendation. Again, stay away from at-home food sensitivity tests and start there, especially if you struggle with like indigestion, stomach aches, bloating, diarrhea, gas, acne, migraines, joint pain. So many things are usually food related. And I just remember how shocked I was when I learned that like the root of all of my pain for 25 years was something so simple as changing my diet. So really just check in with yourself and see if there's something that your body has been trying to tell you for quite some time. Now may be the time to really get into that connection with your body and start listening to it, because it's telling you it for a reason. And for me, it changed my life for the better. I mean, it's also what made me go back to school, what drove me to go back to school for holistic nutrition, shift my career. It just changed my life. And I'm so, so grateful that my body is what led me there. So happy Virgo season, y'all. We're really getting intentional with the body. And I'm going to do some more episodes on Virgo, or maybe one more episode on Virgo, and dive deeper into the energetics of it and what it really brings forth. But I really wanted to start with this foundation of tapping into the body and seeing what it has to say, because we're in Virgo season for another month and a half about, so we have time to work with this energy. So I'm going to talk a bit about my current diet and what that looks like. So kind of going to walk through like what I eat in a day. And basically I focus on a lot of like higher protein, and protein quality has been something that has been so important for me, like truly, truly, truly so important for me. So I usually start with a high protein breakfast, and breakfast is absolutely essential for me. Like I remember like when for the longest time, I would just drink coffee and then I wouldn't eat until like noon. And I was not feeling good, you guys. Like for women, our hormones, we need to get some protein and fat, healthy fat in earlier in the day. It's different for men, but I started, this was last year, I started incorporating protein in within like 30 to 45 minutes of waking up. And it changed so much for me, because I was also really struggling with blood sugar imbalance at the time, because I just wasn't eating enough, and I wasn't eating enough protein, and my blood sugar was all over the place. And so I actually learned about this from a functional medicine practitioner that I was seeing, and she was like, yeah, you need to eat protein, and you need to get it in like within 30 minutes of waking up. Some high quality protein, like pastured, soy-free eggs, whatever you can get in that time frame is going to be key, because that's going to help balance out your blood sugar for the rest of the day. So I adapted that immediately because I was feeling so shitty, and it worked wonders for me. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I've gotten away from it a little bit. And now like I wake up, I have my coffee, and then I eat. But my body like tells me sometimes I don't even finish my coffee because it's like too acidic with nothing in my stomach. So I'm getting back to eating protein sooner and sooner and sooner, especially with like this intention of just like reconnecting to my body. But I'm just bringing this up because like, you guys, a health and wellness journey, especially with food, it's an ebb and flow. Like I'm not perfect, and I'm not even going to act like I'm perfect. And so, and it really refining your daily routines, which that's also a theme of Virgo, is like daily routines and refinement. But it's challenging. Like it can be so hard because you get so stuck in your ways. And so really give yourself grace and just know that you don't have to be perfect. And for me, I have been gradually getting back to eating protein. Like I for sure would say within an hour of waking up, I definitely eat it. And I always cook either fried or scrambled eggs. And now I get my eggs from the farmer's market pretty much exclusively just because I look for soy-free eggs, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I do some avocado. Sometimes I do locally made sourdough if I get it from the farmer's market, because again, sourdough from any store, even if it's like Whole Foods or Sprouts, whatever, has additives in it. And it's just lower quality. And so I always react to lower quality sourdough that has additives. But with locally made sourdough, it never has additives in it, and it always goes bad within a week, which is a good sign because that means there's no additives. So sometimes I don't do it all the time because I don't like to consistently be eating sourdough because there's still like a low amount of gluten in it, but it is easier to digest if you have a healthy gut. Usually, if you have like an autoimmune disease or IBS, or you're just struggling with gut issues, I would avoid sourdough. But if you have pretty healthy digestion, incorporating it every now and then is totally fine, because I'm like, you got to live a little. And so I'll do that. So that's usually breakfast. Sometimes I do some organic chicken sausage, or I'll make like a breakfast taco. Oh my God. So good on the siete almond flour tortillas with this Organic Valley lactose-free cream cheese and like salt and pepper, this like coconut sriracha that I got from the store. Oh my God, it's so good. So it just kind of depends on what I'm in the mood for. And it's honestly usually quick and easy. Or I'll do the Good Culture lactose-free cottage cheese. That has also been a move for me, and I don't react to it because I'm lactose intolerant. And so that's been something that I have found that has been really great for me, getting in additional protein throughout the day. So that's breakfast. Lunch, I can usually honestly be pretty lazy about, not gonna lie. But I do try to keep it higher in protein. I'll usually eat leftovers the day before if my boyfriend hasn't eaten all of them already. Love him. He just eats a lot. Most men do. Not a bad thing. Otherwise, sometimes I make tuna with avocado oil-based mayo and Dijon mustard, but I try not to eat tuna too often just because of the mercury content. But it is a really good, like, every now and then snack if you can get the sustainably caught brands. They sell them at like Whole Foods. And for the mayo, the avocado oil-based mayo, I stick with Chosen Foods or Primal Kitchen brands because brands like Kraft have advertised avocado oil mayo, and they blend it with like canola or some sort of seed oil. So just keep that in mind. I fucking love mayo. I don't care what anyone says. I fucking love it. It's so good. I feel like with mayo, it's like a love-hate relationship. But if you really like mayo and you try to stay away from it because it's unhealthy, switch to avocado oil mayo because it's actually a healthy fat, because avocado oil is a really healthy fat. So hot tip there. Or sometimes I'm lazy again with lunch and I just eat some of my lactose-free cottage cheese and a Paleo Valley meat stick because I'm obsessed with Paleo Valley meat sticks, and call it a day. And then for dinner is my favorite meal of the day. So this is where I get really intentional and present when I'm cooking. And I usually do a protein, a veggie, and either organic jasmine rice or organic brown rice as the starch. That's like, honestly, the only starches that I ever do are either those or roasted sweet potato. I really don't do, like, every now and then I might do a brown rice pasta, which the Jovial brand is my favorite. But I stay away from like the chickpea pastas. Like, oh, what's that brand? Oh, Banza. I used to eat Banza and like it just messes up my stomach. I just cannot have chickpeas at all. Like, it, hummus, everything, like, just totally wrecks me. And again, gotta listen to my body. Beans in general are harder for people to digest, and they are like, I cannot have beans. So I avoid them at all costs. And there's a reason for that because of the makeup of them. It's just harder for us to digest them. But I don't remember the exact science because I'm not deep into the nutrition world anymore. But that's actually why I've never gone vegan, because if you're vegan, you primarily get your protein through beans and like lentils. Like I can't even have lentils even when they're soaked and everything. So I've always eaten prominently animal based, and that's just what my body loves. Like my body loves pure animal protein. And so I've listened to that, and I do struggle a bit with like knowing that the animals were killed. That's like something that is hard for me, but I have to nourish my body. And so that's where sourcing comes into play, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But for dinner, I want to talk about like getting a little intentional, which if you're on my email list, back in Taurus season, I sent out a whole email about this. And if you guys want to join my email list, I send out emails walking you through the zodiac seasons according to True Sky Astrology and give you some insights. It's so much fun. I would love for you to be there, hang out with me on my email list. So I'll put the link for that in the show notes. But I really think that there's something about getting intentional with your food. I swear, you guys, it upgrades the flavor exponentially, because when I throw together a meal, there's always something off flavor wise. Always. But when I'm like super present and super intentional with what I'm making, I can really intuit what it needs, and it just tastes so much better. So my recommendation is and you don't have to spend hours in the kitchen. Like I usually spend like an hour each night cooking, which is not that long. Okay. If a value of yours is eating healthy, then you can make this happen. And you can also switch off with your partner or roommate if, they like to cook or are willing to cook as well. So I usually block out like an hour and just know like, okay, I have at least this whole hour to cook. And so I'm just going to like really focus on it. And then get a cookbook, because honestly, I notice that I get frazzled and just like not present when I'm looking at online recipes, which I still do every once in a while, because then I'll like go check Instagram or something. And it's just like being off your phone when you're cooking is a hack. Okay. And so my favorite cookbook lately has been Seriously So Good by Carissa Stanton. It's seriously so good. Like the name says it all. She has so many amazing recipes in there. And I always like, if her recipes calls for gluten or dairy, I always just like sub things out. And same with garlic. I literally don't cook with garlic at all. I cook with shallots instead. So I would start there, get a new cookbook, or fall back on one that you know and love. And another influencer who's really into nutrition, who has really amazing recipes, is Gracie Norton. So you can look her up. She has a lot of really, really yummy recipes as well. But so that's going to be like my first two tips is blocking off an hour, getting a cookbook, and then next I would recommend prepping all of your vegetables, all of your spices, all of the other ingredients before you actually start cooking. This is called your mise en place. I think they call it in French. I don't know if I said that right. But once you have everything prepped, then you can start the cooking process. It makes things go so much smoother, because I can't tell you how many times I am like chopping up my broccoli and then my shallots are burning because I didn't chop it all up. So just do yourself a favor and like look at what the recipe calls for, get all the spices, all the vegetables prepped. That's honestly usually the most work when you're cooking, and then the actual cooking part is really easy. That's really it. Like really, really focusing on that. And also pour yourself your favorite bevy. You guys know I love me an Olipop or a Poppy while I'm cooking. It used to be wine, but I've like long since adapted away from that. But if you do want to pour yourself a glass of wine, like so be it. No judgment. I just really like to have something to like sip on, because I feel like that also brings me into the present moment when I'm like getting my taste buds, like putting something on my taste buds. And honestly, like Olipop and Poppy, they're not the best thing, but again, like I am not the type of person that's like super, super perfect when it comes to food, because I used to be that way and I developed an eating disorder from it. So I really think that like nutrition and the way you eat is so individualized, and you really need to be your own lead from within when it comes to that. And so that's what I do. Okay, so let's talk about sourcing of meats. This is a biggie, okay? So grass-fed and finished meats. This is really important. And the finished part is key because farmers can put grass-fed on the label even if the cow has literally been exposed to grass for like a day in their entire life. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you want to look for grass-fed and finished. It means that the cow ate grass for the entirety of its life, even up to before it was slaughtered. Okay. And because sometimes grass-fed cows, even if they're grazing for most of their life, right before they get slaughtered, they'll give them grains to kind of fatten them up a bit. So you really want to look for that finished, grass-fed and finished. And I'll be really honest, it's hard to find that at regular grocery stores. If you guys want to follow an account that is like truly so amazing when it comes to advocating and becoming a conscious consumer, I recommend Jamie McGuire, and her Instagram handle is Jamie Ann Aesthetics because she's also an esthetician, holistic esthetician. But she has, just following her has, I feel like since I'm not in the nutrition world, I've been like following her, and it feels like she's given me like a refresh on everything, because with nutrition, it's like constantly changing. Like we're constantly learning new things. We're constantly thinking, oh, this is healthy for you. There's constantly new fads. And so you really have to stay up to date with things. And she is a really great leader in that field. And she has just reminded me to really be my own advocate when it comes to what I eat. So I'll put her handle in the show notes because I just think she's such an amazing resource. Oh, and that's what I was going to say earlier, like about Banza, for instance. Like we found out recently that like glyphosate is all over. They've done testing and glyphosate is in the Banza products, which is a chemical that they spray on a lot of wheat. So again, things that like, and I used to eat Banza right when it like first came out. And anyways, so you just have to really keep yourself up to date. It can be really exhausting. I'm not going to lie. I'm with you on that. But basically what I've done is I've just started going to my local farmers market and buying from local farmers because they always do all grass-fed and finished meats and pastured chicken and pastured eggs and chicken. That's a whole nother story as well, because, we see on a lot of chicken and even eggs, like vegetarian fed. Chickens are not vegetarians. They eat worms, they eat bugs, I just learned they even eat small animals. I don't really know what that looks like, but they really need to be able to graze on everything for the healthiest, most nutrient dense meat and eggs. And so that is really, really important. And so I'm at the point where I'm just buying everything at the farmers market, because even at the grocery store, like finding truly pasture raised eggs and that are soy free, like they're not fed any soy products because soy is inflammatory for us. There's one brand that's local to Texas at Whole Foods that does soy free. One brand. And so at this point I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go to the farmers market, get them there. Because what I have found out recently as well is that Sprouts, and I found this out from Jamie McGuire. I'm just going to give her credit here. Sprouts sources their chicken, not all of it, but a lot of it, from Tyson Foods. Okay. And apparently I don't know about Whole Foods, but she's mentioned Whole Foods is not as transparent or not as truthful as what they claim to be with their meat sourcing as well. Anyways, she reached out to Sprouts and they confirmed to her directly that yes, they do get their chicken from Tyson Foods and just repackage it. This is horrible because Tyson Foods is it's the world's second largest processor of chicken, beef, and pork. The world's second largest processor of these animals, aka factory farming, and horrible conditions for the animals, you guys. Like horrible. I've seen videos. It is heart-wrenching. Like I'm not even going to go into it. some of the things that I've seen of how they treat the animals, it's literally like torturing them. And so even if you don't feel for the animals, really start to think about your health, because this is where, when it comes to meat and animal products, this is where you are what you eat holds the most value. Because whatever their diet is translates into their meat or their eggs or their cheese, and that translates into your body. Okay, so for example, with grass-fed and finished beef, super, super high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are super beneficial for you in so many ways. And it also contains 2 to 3 more times the amount of a beneficial fatty acid called conjugated linoleic acid, which is also CLA for short, which is a potent antioxidant that's been shown to prevent against heart disease, diabetes, cancer. It's super, super good for you. And this is why eating these meats, they're so nutrient dense, like truly so nutrient dense, and they will up-level your health so much, you guys. So if you don't care as much about the animals, I definitely do, but if you don't, that's fine. It's about getting clear on what your values are when it comes to why you eat the way that you eat. Okay. And so think about that. And also, it can really help with weight loss, eating really healthier, nutrient dense animal protein. Okay. And then when we look at the meat from conventionally raised cows that are commonly fed corn, their meat contains high amounts of omega-6 fatty acids, which are very inflammatory to the body. So this is a really big hack. Like, truly, this is not something that is a fad. It is, I think it's like the most, I've always, ever since I went back to school for nutrition, the sourcing of meat has always, and the quality of meat has always been like my number one priority and value when it comes to the way that I eat. And I'm not saying it has to be yours either, but what I'm encouraging you to do here is to get clear on what are your values when it comes to the way you eat. Because if you get clear on that, you can really structure your diet from there. And that's what's going to be sustainable for you. So not only that, but getting back into the grass-fed and finished meats, they're also regeneratively raised, which means the way that they're farmed gives back to the earth, and it's better for global warming. Factory farming is a big contributor to greenhouse gases. And I hear so many people that are like pescatarian or anti-beef, they're like, oh, I don't eat red meat at all because number one, they say it's bad for your heart, and two, they say it's bad for the environment. If you're eating the right meat, like the 100% grass-fed and finished beef, it's actually really good for your heart, and it's actually not bad for the environment. I don't care what anybody says. I've actually talked to someone about this before, and she was like, yeah, no, it's still bad for the environment. I was like, okay, no, it's not. Like, regenerative agriculture restores the earth, and there are so many experts and like farmers that will tell you the exact same thing. Okay. So that's a whole other ball game, and I'm going to get a little spicy about it because that is just not true. So it's all about the sourcing of the red meat. Okay. Wild pastures, if like you maybe don't want to go to a local farmer's market, Wild Pastures is a really great source for grass-fed and finished meats, and you can order that online. Pasture Bird is one of my favorite brands for chicken. They used to sell them at Sprouts, but they don't anymore. So you can order that online as well. So basically, like, we're canceling Sprouts when it comes to meats. And also, I think Sprouts' seafood is disgusting. But basically, with Sprouts, for me, all I buy there are like fun packaged goodies because they always have all the fun goodies like Smart Sweets or Truvani, like their only bars they sell there, or their protein powder. Truvani is one of the only protein powders that I like that's clean. Ollie Pops, that's really the only things that I get at Sprouts these days. So I know it seems like a lot, but it really is so worth it. And you will notice a huge difference in how you feel when you start to make these changes and shifts in your diet. So moving on, plant-based does not mean it's better for you. This is massive, okay? The Impossible Burger and other plant-based meat alternatives have tons of additives in them, tons of seed oils in them. Like, and I feel like it's very like bro culture to like avoid seed oils and all of that stuff. But like, no, it truly is so harmful for you to eat all of these seed oils in high amounts. And so, as much as you can do to adjust your diet, like the better. So if you are someone that maybe eating animals just doesn't align with your values, I would at least stay away from the meat alternatives because they are horrible, and try to stick to more whole food protein sources if you can, like the beans or eggs or whatnot. I've always said that ever since I've been in the field of nutrition. You guys know, if you've been with me from the beginning, you know I've always been against the plant-based meat alternatives. And also grass-fed butter. Grass-fed, truly grass-fed butter is good for you. Okay? Eat it. It is high in omega-3 fats. It's 3 to 5 times higher in CLA, which is that antioxidant that I mentioned earlier that's also in grass-fed and finished meats. And it's a really deep yellow color because it contains more beta carotene and vitamin A. So beta carotene is what gives carrots their orange color. Okay, so it's a naturally occurring coloring. And I say that because, you know, when we look at margarine, which is like super processed and fake, it's also super yellow, but that's like, I don't even know what it is that makes it that yellow, but it's fake. It's a chemical, whereas this is natural. So just keep that in mind. And this is what I would recommend for cooking. I actually recently just learned that you're not supposed to cook with, I already knew not to cook with olive oil because it oxidizes super easily, and you're basically turning the healthy monounsaturated fats in olive oil into omega-6s and toxins when you're cooking with it. So never cook with olive oil. I already knew that, but I did not know that you shouldn't cook with avocado oil. This is something that I also recently learned from Jamie. She's keeping me up to date as I've been like out of the nutrition world for a few years. But basically, avocado oil and olive oil should only be used in like dressings, or really just like dressings, or used to not to heat them up, okay, because they oxidize no matter what their smoke point is. So she recommended cooking with beef tallow, which I have not, of course, 100% grass fed. I have not tried beef tallow yet. Grass-fed butter or ghee, which is clarified butter, again, grass-fed. Ghee is a hack, which if you're lactose intolerant like me, you might prefer ghee because ghee is butter just with the lactose taken out of it. And so I actually do pretty okay with butter, but I love ghee as well. So those are the top 3 recommendations for what to actually cook with and heat. But if I have too much butter, then I notice like I can't have too much butter in one sitting. But it is definitely something, I'm a big proponent of this. So many people think it's so bad for you, but you just have to have the right butter. Okay. So throw away all of the canola and vegetable oils ASAP, because those are so bad for you. They're so bad for your health. This is like one of the biggest hacks to start with, is like changing out your cooking oils and also going through your fridge and doing an audit of all of your dressings, because dressings and sauces have so many hidden sugars and so many seed oils. They're just so bad for you. And so I recommend Primal Kitchen or Chosen Foods as the cleanest options out there. Really do an audit and inventory of that. And your spices, see if there's any added sugars in those, because that's how sugar will sneak into your diet. And that is how you gain weight, is through all that added sugar. It's just unnecessary calories at that point. So that is a huge, huge health hack. And also, if you're gluten-free, I love cooking with coconut aminos or tamari, because tamari is gluten-free soy sauce and coconut aminos is made from coconut sap. So it has a similar flavor to soy sauce, but it's actually a little sweeter. It gives, oh my gosh, like sauteing veggies in it gives it so much flavor. Sometimes that's like all I'll saute my veggies in. And you don't even need to salt it because it's already got a nice salty flavor. And speaking of salt too, making sure you have a really high quality pink Himalayan or Celtic sea salt is going to be really important, and only cooking with that as well. And again, I mean, if you have heart issues, and I'm not a doctor, but having salt in our diet is important for water, for hydration, for our body retaining water. So don't be afraid of salt. I cook with a lot of salt because my body just like wants it. And so I listen. And for weight loss, you guys, so I used to work in weight loss specifically. It is significantly more about what you eat than your workouts. Significantly. And so I'm not saying don't work out, but I'm just saying, like, when I used to be a nutrition counselor at a medical weight loss clinic, I worked with people on changing their diets. And what drove results was a high protein, whole foods focused diet, which is everything that I've just explained. And again, quality protein is key. So all right, we're getting up on time here. I feel like I could probably do another episode on this, but you guys will have to let me know if you like it, if you thought it was valuable. I hope so. Just because I feel like this information is so, like, this is everything that I used to teach when I was a holistic nutrition consultant. And like I said, it's been like, it's needed an update. I'm like, okay, like I needed an update in the brands that I was buying. And so I just really wanted to come on and share what I've learned recently as we're entering in Virgo season. Okay. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about brands wise is eggs, which I've kind of touched on. But again, learned through Jamie that Vital Farms is not as transparent as they're not what they claim to be. And she's gotten like inside resources on this as well. But basically, they are not truly pasture raised chickens. They have barns with 100,000+ chickens in them that are literally on top of each other, sometimes killing each other because there's literally no space for them. This to me was like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm so exhausted at this point. Like, I'm sitting here thinking Vital Farms is a really good brand. And it makes sense that they're not living up to the ethical standards and ever since they went public, because they are literally in every grocery store at this point. So think about it, like they have to meet that demand. And that's how are they going to meet that demand? Like it takes a lot more manpower to truly regeneratively raise animals. That's why you don't see a lot of local farms in all these different farmers markets, because they wouldn't be able to keep, or grocery stores rather, because they wouldn't be able to keep up with the demand. So that's just something to think about. If you're seeing a brand that you love like really explode and it's everywhere, maybe look into it. And that's something that I've really learned recently, is like being a more proactive, conscious consumer on that front. So we're boycotting Vital Farms eggs now. Thank you, Jamie, for all of this up-to-date information. And yeah, I think that's where I'm going to stop for today, because I feel like I just threw so much information at y'all. Let me know what you think about this episode. And if you guys have any questions, or you want me to cover any other aspects of diet, maybe some myths, or fads that you may be curious about, let me know. You can email the show or DM me on Instagram. I would love to hear from you guys. And just as we're closing out this episode, just know, like, I am not perfect with my diet. As I've mentioned, I drink Olipop, I drink Poppy, I eat Smart Sweets. Like, sometimes I eat like the Sweet Lawrence cookies. But I try to do it in, a balanced variation. And I also eat out. Like, when I'm eating out, I cannot control the quality of the meat that I'm putting into my body. And that's something that bothers me, but I'm just like, you know what? Like, I have to live my fucking life. Like, I have to live my life. And I'm not going to be like an extremist when it comes to my diet and not eat out at all, because I did that before and it just didn't work out for me. Like, if you're feeling like the way that you eat is holding you back in any way, then it's not actually like healthy for you, in my opinion. So again, this is just really about getting clear on what you value when it comes to eating and starting there. So I'm also going to do a skincare episode because ever since I turned 30, I've been like really upping my skincare. And so I'm going to share because that's also a part of like self-care, wellness, very Virgo. And so I'm also going to share what my favorite products are, and we're gonna go from there. And in terms of exercise, what I will say is that my favorite form of movement right now is reformer Pilates. And I kind of got away from it for a little while, and because I didn't like the studio that I was going to. And then I decided, I one day was sitting on the couch and I could feel that I had gained a little bit of weight, and I was just like, I need to start going to Pilates again because it makes me feel better. It motivates me to eat better. And that was also before I like started getting really intentional again with like what I was eating. And again, I wasn't eating like a bunch of junk, but I wasn't eating like super, super healthy all the time. And so, anyways, I was just sitting on the couch one day and I was like, I actually had run into synchronistically had run into someone, and she was a Pilates instructor at the studio I used to go to, and she started working at a new boutique studio here in Austin. So she told me about it and I was like, I need to sign up, and I love it now. It's called Ritual Moves. If you're in Austin, it's such a vibe, very holistic, very like mind body oriented. And so that's what I've been doing like twice a week. And it just brings me back to my center. And I love it so much. So finding a form of movement that like you really, really love is so important. Like for me, I'm not a gym girl. I never have been. I never will be. And like I walk into the gym and I'm like, I have no idea what to do. And I just haven't really been wanting to do yoga lately just because I feel like that was such a big part of my life. But I don't know, I've just been so drawn to reformer Pilates. And so I'm really listening to that. And then, of course, I also dance, which in and of itself is also a workout. So staying active through and through, do what you enjoy, and really just do what feels good for you, because that is what's going to be sustainable. So as we enter into Virgo season, really think about like, what are your intentions? How do you want to focus on going inward, listening to your body more? For me, that means no alcohol, shopping more at my local farmer's market for both meats and vegetables. And I'm also working on refining my morning routine because, like I said, Virgo is also about the routines, the daily routine. And for me, my morning routine, I have really adapted. I've been so good about it the past few weeks. I wake up, I walk my dog first thing in the morning, then I make my coffee and feed him. Then I come in my room and I do what I call like my devotional practices. I read my book, that it's like a spiritual book that I've been reading. I pull from my oracle decks, I journal, and that is something that I really got away from for a while. And I meditate in silence, in pure silence, just for like 5 minutes, sometimes less. And that has been something that I have been so consistent with. And it has been just so nourishing. Like it's truly my me time. Like I've started waking up earlier so that I can have like more time in my morning for walking Jax, my dog, and feeding him, and then like making my coffee, and then I make breakfast too, and doing my morning devotion. And so that for me has been like such a game changer. And then I have more time when I'm waking up earlier. I can start my day not super late. So, really, just as we're really at the time of this episode release, we'll still be really in the beginning of Virgo season. So, think about, what do you want to focus on in Virgo season, and what is your body telling you? So, thank you guys so much for listening. So fun for me to go back to my roots of holistic nutrition. More to come. If you guys want, just let me know.